noticed one other economic reason that people have been doing it, and it seems to be tied with once the EU started allowing anybody from any member country to work in any other EU country. I've noticed that a lot of oil workers in particular who want to work in the North Sea in the UK, Scotland, Norway, places like that, they have scoured through their family tree to find any relative from, say, Poland or Germany or Italy or Greece, so they can get a second passport from any country. They don't care which, as long as it's an EU country. So then they can go and work in the EU. And before, you wouldn't be able to do that, because if you want to work in England, you have to have an English passport. Well, I guess England's out of the EU now, but you know, in the past, if let's say you wanted to go work in Germany or Holland, you needed to have a visa for there. But now, if you can get a Polish passport, you can work in Greece or you can work in Spain. It's no big deal. And a lot of people, I think, are seeing that as their goal. Even a lot of Americans and Canadians are like looking at their ancestors and trying to get the second passport from Ireland or anything like that.
Yeah, you're right. There's Greece by descent seems to allow a higher amount of jump backs, like great grandfather can be discussed kind of thing. It's not a colourful one, where the UK really only goes back a little bit. You're right. There's Turkey. If you wanted to live, the Turkish lira is right down, and you could live well in Turkey. I don't think they're part of the Schengen, but they probably one day might be. But you can do a citizenship by investment in Turkey to buy a property that's 250,000 US or more, and hold it for I think it's 5 years. Sometimes that means it's a specific project like developer stock, but not always, and it just depends. And so imagine all of a sudden you become a Turkish citizen. Like it's funny, we talk about non-correlating investments sometimes. Like, you know, we have properties different to shares, right? In theory, they're non-correlating. You imagine having a citizenship that is not correlated with the Western world. Turkey's probably about, so like, you know, if the Western world was falling apart, maybe your Turkish passport's maybe it's a nice place to hide out. You know, I don't know. Who knows?
Well, and if you want to travel to the Middle East and you don't want to have the stigma of being, say, an American or an Israeli or something, God, no. you definitely want to have a second passport. Yeah. But
even Australia, we went to war there. Yeah.
But the funny thing is, like, the reason I ask is because I looked into this a couple of years ago, and the problem I had though was that my ancestors, it's only my grandma, so it's not very far back. But the problem is, her passport said Soviet Union. Her ethnicity, or how she identified, was Polish, but the land where she was born is now Belarus. because of all the shifting of the borders. It used to be Poland, but now it's technically in Belarus. But her passport at the time said Soviet Union. So where do you apply? Do you apply in Belarus, Russia, or Poland? and at the end of the day, I looked into Poland because it was EU, but they said, well, it's geographically not part of Poland. So what can we do? So
yeah, I mean, look, there's still the hundreds of thousands of dollars donation in the Caribbean country and get you. And look, you get a family of four in for about, I don't know, maybe 250,000 Australian. A family of four, you get a tax. You can be a tax resident. But if you did that in, say, Grenada, in that, you would have the right to work in the UK, no matter what age you are. Because it's still a Commonwealth country, right? So they come with these weird little things that if you want that second passport. I mean, those areas tend to be more about it's a tax-free status, a lot of stuff. Some of them get like 10-year business visas to the US straight up, which I think is pretty attractive because that's not easy to get. But yeah, it's been interesting having a look at some of those. Peru and Ecuador, you can do that in about 3 years of being a temporary residency and owning it. $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 property, which is probably get you something pretty decent in Ecuador. No, Peru that is. Like, just interesting to see different countries and how they attract capital. El Salvador El Salvador's talking about if you give 3 Bitcoins, because that's their national currency now. This new guy, wears his baseball. The president of El Salvador wears his baseball cap backwards, dresses all in white like he's one, what is it, back to men or something, is it? What like he's a Backstreet Boy or something like that,
Wall Street venture capitalist style.
Yeah, well, he said he's talking about 3 Bitcoins. It was hard to read whether that was a citizenship of El Salvador or that was actually a permanent residency. So, but 3 Bitcoins, right? So it depends on what those 3 Bitcoins are worth. And I guess right now it's probably worth $250,000 about.
3 Bitcoins. So, for 3 Bitcoins, he'd probably be your best mate.
Yeah, probably. So it is interesting to see that citizenship by investment. Bitcoin is what we're chasing because that's our currency now. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. So, mate, look, there's a lot of options to doing that. If I had my choice, it would be Thailand because I love Thailand. They don't do it. Thais don't want to sell their sovereignty off, and I respect that from the Thais. Hard to drop $1 million, a couple 100,000, and just have your whole family become Thai citizens. There's a lot more hoops to jump through. You've got to stay about 10, 12 years, I think.
Yeah, it's weird. I think they've got a different, and I wouldn't use the word racist, but they've got a different outlook of it, which a lot of Asian countries look at, and they look at it as, I think Japan's very similar. Singapore is the only one that I know of that doesn't do this, but it's like most Asian countries that I've seen, they sort of, in an unwritten rule, it's sort of like citizenship is only people that are ethnically from here originally.
Yeah.
And no matter how long you live here, you will never be one of us. Now, your children, if you marry a local, your children can potentially be one of us, but you were not born here. You are not ethnically from here. So therefore, the best you can aspire to is permanent residency, and that's it. Yeah. It's kind of like the American rule that you can do anything you want in America, but if you weren't born there, you can never be president.
Oh
yeah, kind of like that. The Arnold Schwarzenegger rule, right? But I mean, I think that's the way Thailand is, because I've heard of very few people that were born outside of Thailand that were ever successfully becoming citizens, because there's a test. I believe there's a test on language, religion, culture. I heard a story of the one fella who lived in Thailand as a monk, as a Buddhist monk for 30 years, learned the language absolutely spot on perfectly, and he was rejected for citizenship after living here. So I thought, well, what chance do I have? So,
hey, mate, and in reality, look, you would chase the path of least resistance. If you wanted to travel through the EU and be part of the Schengen, Portugal has the fastest one. It's 5 years. All you got to do there is be working there.
I think Malta.
Get a work visa. Sorry?
I think Malta and Gibraltar are fairly.
Malta want a big whack of dough.
Do they?
Malta want $1 million. And you buy your way. Oh, sorry. Yeah. If you want speed without paying the big money, Portugal's, all you have to do is have a work visa and be there and keep extending it. Once you're there 5 years, it's kind of, you can be the citizen. But yeah, you're right. If you want to drop $1 million or $2 million into Switzerland or something, yeah, you can buy your citizenship. So I'm assuming if you're a movie star or a sports star, you can have a citizenship in 4 or 5 different places. And some of those will be like 1% tax rates where you might hold your intellectual property for all your Nike sponsorships or your royalties or whatever it is. Like, that's what I would have mine.
Well, there was a limited time offer in Canada, believe it or not, like that when the Hong Kong was given back to China. Canada wanted all those tasty investment dollars. So they had a limited time offer that if you invested, I think it was 300,000 Canadian, which is probably 200,000 American. But you would get an immediate, our version of a green card with a fast track to citizenship. So now, fast forward, what is it, 25 years later, there are hundreds of thousands, I think, of former Hong Kong citizens who are now Canadians, simply because what they didn't realize at the time was that for an average, say, a dentist to have a basic 1-bedroom flat in Hong Kong, that cost $300,000. So it wasn't so you didn't have to be wealthy in Hong Kong to be wealthy in Canada. So there was a lot of these like just average white collar workers from Hong Kong who emigrated, sold their family home or their apartment in Hong Kong, and then had a 5-bedroom mansion in Canada for the same amount of money. And because that counted as their investment. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why the west coast of Canada is Chinese is the second most commonly spoken language other than English in certain parts.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
and it's really interesting.
And it's because of people from Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore that have emigrated there, especially since 1997. Wow. A huge influx in 1997 because it's being a Commonwealth country as well, right? So
yeah. Okay, cool. Anyways. Yeah, interesting, mate. So that's probably somewhat passion projects is studying up on that stuff for my clients. It's great information actually, and it's opened my eyes up a fair bit, and I'm grabbing it with both hands. So